Okay, so right now we can play the game, we can play, but if we collide with the pipes or if we collide with the ground, we don't die, and we should be able to die. So to do this, we're gonna go to the project first of all, and we're gonna go to our bird script. So yeah, we're gonna go to Visual Studio, to our bird script, and here we're going to specify the cases or the scenarios in which we're going to call the game over, or in where we're going to say that it's game over. So to do this, we're going to create a new method called void onCollision enter 2D. This method is similar to the trigger onTrigger enter 2D, but in this case, when we're calling onCollision enter 2D, we're actually listening for collisions. So if we collide with a collider, then this will trigger. The code inside the onCollision enter 2D will trigger. Okay, so we want to check if we collide with the ground here. So we say if collision dot, and in this case we say game object dot compare tag. So in here we need to add an extra step and we need to say game object. I don't know why they do it like this, but it's the way you do it. So if collision dot game object dot compare tag, and in commas, in quotes, we have to type in the name of the tag. So if this is the ground, so if we collide with the ground, we want to first of all check if we have already collided with the pipes. So if, and now we have to check here if game over is equal to false. So as you can see, we need to actually know how to detect that game over is true or if game over is false. And to do this, we're gonna go to our game manager for a moment, and at the top we're going to just write a comment and saying that this is gonna be the game states, and below here we're gonna create our game states. They're gonna be Boolean variables of type static and public. So public static bool, and we're gonna call this one game over. And at the start, in the start method in the game manager, we're going to say that game over equals false. So at the start of the game over is gonna be equal to false. So this is the game state that we're gonna implement in our game. So let's go back to our bird, and here we're going to check if game manager dot game over, so if this is equal to false. If it's equal to false, then we're going to call game over. So I'm going to just write a comment for now, game over. And if it is already the game over, so if it's game over already, then what we're going to do is that we're going to call a game over method, but this game over method is the bird, is the game over from the bird. So we're gonna have a general game over to specify what's going to happen when it's game over in the whole game, and this game over is the game over that we're going to implement in game manager. And then we're gonna have a game over for the bird. So when we die, what do we want the bird to do? Okay, and now we need here in the onTrigger enter 2D, we need to check if we collide with the pipe. So else if, we need to check else if, and open parentheses. So else if we collide with the pipe, so if collision dot compare tag, and in here we just look for the tag pipe. So if we collide with a game object that's a pipe, okay, so compare tag pipe like this. I need another parenthesis. Else if collision dot compare tag is a pipe, so if we collide with a pipe, but the way we want to collide with a pipe is not the same way we want to collide with the ground. So if we're checking here, we're listening for collisions, and here we're checking for triggers, and right now our pipes are set to colliders, so we need to transform the collider of our pipe to a trigger for this to work. Okay, so here we're just gonna call the game over method too. All right, so okay, so now we know when we want to call our game over method, but now we need to know what we want to do when our game over method is called. So first of all, let's implement this game over method. So let's go to our game manager, and here we can create it after the start method. We can create a void game over method like this, void game over method, and inside here for now we're going to say that game over, so our variable game over is true. So if we call this method, we're gonna set our variable game over to true. And if we set our variable game over to true, what do we want to happen in the game? Okay, so one thing that we want to happen is that we don't want to be able to flap. We don't want to be able to flap every time we touch the screen if the game is over. So if input.game mouse button down is 0, so if we tap the screen and game manager dot game over equals false, so while game manager dot game over equals false, if we tap on the screen, then we're going to flap. And if game manager dot game over equals true, then we won't be able to execute this if statement. Okay, then inside the bird rotation, we don't want to. We actually okay, so here we want to keep checking for the rotation of the angle, but if we touch the ground, we want to stop checking if we rotate the angle or not. I mean the angle, the bird, sorry. If we don't want to keep rotating the bird if we touch the ground. So we're going to create a boolean variable called bool touch ground, so touched ground, and this is going to be false in the beginning of the game because we haven't assigned any value to it. So by default, if you don't assign a value, then it's false. So this boolean variable is false at the beginning of the game, and here we're just going to set the rotation of the bird if touch ground equals false. So we're only going to transform the rotation of the bird. We are going to alter or modify the rotation of the bird if touch ground is equal to false. That means that if the bird is on the air and if we touch the ground, then here we're going to say that touch ground equals true, like this. We can also say that and add a semicolon over here. All right, so right now what we have to do is that we need to, okay, we have implemented one part of the game over state, but now we have to keep saying or keep thinking about where we want this to affect in our code. So what we want our false state to affect in our code. So we don't want to be able to tap the screen again. We also don't want to be able to move our object. So we don't want to be able to move our ground and our pipes to the left, right? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to say if game manager dot game over equals false. So if it's false, then so in every frame we're going to check if game manager dot game over equals false, and if it's false, then we're going to actually move to the left. But if it's true, then we're going to stop moving to the left. All right, so we have that covered. And in our column spawner, we don't want to keep spawning pipes if game over equals to false. So I mean if game over equals to true. So if game manager dot game over equals to false, then we want to keep doing this. We want to keep updating the timer and spawning new columns like this. All right, so we have this set. Now inside our bird, okay, now we could go to the Unity editor and press play and see what happens. Okay, so apparently nothing happens. Okay, so basically what's happening is that we haven't called the method game over. We have defined game over in the game manager, but we're not calling this method. And we have also defined the behavior, what we want to happen in our game, but we're not calling this method from anywhere. So to call this method inside here, type in game manager, but you can see that we have to first, we need a reference to the game over method. So we're going to go to game manager, make this method public, and then inside the bird script we need a reference to game manager. So to do this, we can say that this over here, we can see that these are the references. We're gonna create a reference to the game manager. So public game manager, and now if we touch the ground, if we touch the ground for the and we touch the ground before the pipes, we're just going to say game over. So game manager dot game over, like this, and we're going to copy this line of code and paste it where we're checking if we collide with the pipes. But remember that these pipes, we're checking for collision of type trigger over here. So in the Unity editor, we have to go back to our prefabs, and inside our column, we have to make sure that pipe 1 is set to trigger. So to set it to trigger, select pipe 1 and select here is trigger, and pipe 2 should also be a trigger. So don't forget to select those. Now we can go back to the scene, and now don't forget to actually go to the select the bird object, and here we're expecting a reference to the game manager. So click the game manager and drag it to where it says game manager here in the bird script. So save the game, and now we have a reference. So now if we collide, we can see that the game stops, and that's what we want to happen. That's what we want to happen in our game. And the bird stops. It's just that the bird is now rendering behind the pipes. So to fix this, select the bird and go to the sorting layer. And in the sorting layer in the bird, we're going to, it's set to midground. So we're going to create another sorting layer. So add sorting layer, and this sorting layer, we're going to call it bird. And we want our bird to render in front, so behind the foreground, but in front of the midground. So like this. So put the bird layer in after the midground and before the foreground, like this. So now if we save, select the bird first of all, and change the sorting layer from midground to bird. And now we play the game and we collide with the pipes. We can see that the bird renders in front of the pipes and at the same level of the ground. Alright, so now we have that done, but you can see that the bird is still moving, and we don't want the bird to keep moving. We also want the bird to have a rotation of -90 degrees. So we want the bird to be vertical. Okay. So to do this, we're gonna go to our bird script, and in our bird script, we're gonna need a reference to a sprite. So we're gonna say public sprite, and here we can say bird died. So here we need a reference to a sprite, and what we're going to do is that we're going to create our game over method. So after the onCollision method, we're going to create a void game over. So this game over is going to be the game over of the bird, and in here we're going to set this sprite as the bird sprite. So we actually need another reference, but this is not an external reference. This is an internal reference. We need a reference to the sprite render of the bird. So to create a reference to the sprite render of the bird, we type in sprite renderer, and we can call this sp. And in the start method, we can say sp is equal to get component sprite renderer like this. So now we have a reference to the component of the bird, to the sprite renderer, and in the method, in the game over method, we can say that the sp dot sprite equals to bird died. Okay, so now doing this, we're changing the sprite of the bird. We also can say that the transform dot position dot rotation, we're changing the rotation equal to quaternion dot Euler, and then inside here we type in 0 0 because we want the rotation to be 0 for the x, 0 for the x, 0 for the y, and in the z-axis we want to put in -90. Okay, so -90. So this is going to be the rotation for the bird, and now when we touch the ground, we want to call the game over method of the bird, like this. And if we touch the ground for the first time, then we also want to call this game over method. So copy and paste here. All right, so okay, so that's going to be it. Make sure to we can put this touch ground, instead of putting it here, we can actually put it here in the game over. like this, so it's better. So touch ground, when it's game over for the bird, touch ground equals true. We change the sprite and we set the transform equal to -90. Alright, so now we only need a reference to the sprite. So let's go back to the Unity editor. We're gonna select the bird and we can now see that inside the script we are waiting for a reference to the sprite. So let's go to our sprites folder, and we're going to select the sprite of the bird which has the wing at middle position. So click on it and hold and drag it, because if you just click on it you will see that the inspector changes. So make sure that that you have your bird selected and click and hold. So click and hold and drag to where it says bird died. Okay, so now we can just save the game, play the game, and now you can see that we've set animation to that, but the animation is still running, and this is because we haven't told the animation to stop. So to tell the animation to stop, we have to get a reference to the animator of the bird. When we created the animation for the bird, see that this is the animation of the bird. When you select a game object and you click the animation view, then all the animations will appear here or over here. So this is the only animation that the bird has right now. And when we create an animation, animator component appears here in inspector. So we need a reference, we need an internal reference to the animator, and then we have to disable the animator. So to do this is very similar to what we did with the sprite renderer. We're going to say animator anim, and inside the start method we're going to say anim equals get component animator. And now that we have the reference to the animator, we can actually go here to the game over method, and here we're going, before setting the sprite to the bird died sprite, we're going to say anim dot enabled equals false. So we're saying that we want to disable the animator, so we say anim dot enabled equals false. So now we're disabling the animator. So now if we go back to Unity editor and we play the game, we can see that the bird stops and the rotation of the bird is -90 degrees. So if we play the game again, we can go through the pipes like this. We're happy and we're going through the pipes, and if we collide with a pipe, then everything stops and the bird dies like we want it to die. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.